For every Trish Stratus and Lita, there is a whole roster of women who got lost in the shuffle, quietly pushed out, or had careers that ended in ways nobody ever properly explained. From shocking scandals to heartbreaking stories that WWE never wanted revisited, this is what really happened to the forgotten women of WWE. Kelly Kelly. Kelly Kelly's story is one of the most surprising glow-up stories the Divas Era ever produced, and it deserves way more credit than it typically gets. She debuted on ECW in 2006 at just 19 years old with zero professional wrestling experience. Originally positioned as pure eye candy in a role that Vince McMahon himself created with no real long-term vision attached to it. But Barbie Blank did something that nobody expected. She actually put in the work, improved consistently year after year, and by 2011, the WWE Universe voted her in as #1 contender on the Power to the People episode of Raw, where she went on to pin Brie Bella and capture the Divas Championship, holding it for 104 days before losing it to Beth Phoenix. She also became the first WWE Diva to appear on the cover of Maxim magazine that same year, proving her crossover appeal went well beyond the arena. By September of 2012, she had requested her release, citing a neck injury and a desire to pursue modeling full-time, and she built a genuinely successful life outside wrestling through reality television, acting, and a strong influencer presence online. She holds a Legends contract today and was recently added to the 2K26 video game roster, keeping her firmly connected to the world that made her famous. But while Kelly's story ended on warm terms, the next woman on our list had a far more chaotic ride and left fans feeling like they never truly got everything she was capable of delivering. Melina. If you were watching SmackDown in 2005 and heard a shrieking scream echo through the arena, followed by a woman doing the splits on the ring apron, you already know exactly who we are talking about. Melina's entrance alone was unlike anything the women's division had ever seen, and it was only matched by what she could do once she stepped inside those ropes and actually got to work. She debuted managing Joey Mercury and Johnny Nitro, steering them to 3 tag team championship reigns, while declaring herself the most dominant diva in the company, with a confidence that never once wavered. When she moved to singles competition in 2007, she defeated Mickie James for the Women's Championship and never truly left the title picture, eventually becoming a 3-time WWE Women's Champion and a 2-time Divas Champion, making her the first woman in WWE history to hold both titles multiple times, a record that gets criminally overlooked in conversations about this era. Her feuds with Trish Stratus, Mickie James, and Michelle McCool produced some of the best women's wrestling of that entire period, and she had the rare ability to work heel or babyface convincingly while making everything around her feel genuinely intense. She was released in August of 2011, with creative reportedly having nothing lined up for her, and has since made sporadic appearances for Impact, Lucha Underground, and the NWA, while remaining a respected name on the independent circuit. But if Melina was the star who faded out quietly before her time, the next woman on our list got not one, but 2 completely different runs in WWE, and still left fans feeling like her story was never properly finished. Maria Kanellis. Maria Kanellis entered WWE in 2004 through the Diva Search and was hired as a backstage interviewer on SmackDown, playing a sweet but hopelessly ditzy character who fumbled lines and looked genuinely confused on camera. And by her own admission, a lot of that was not entirely an act, because she was green, nervous, and still finding her footing in a completely unfamiliar environment. But she leaned into it smartly, made it work, and gradually built a fan base that genuinely connected with her natural warmth and likability over time. Her most memorable stretch came in 2007, when a love triangle storyline involving Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix gave her consistent television time and a real personality to work with, and she capped that period by winning the Slammy Award for Diva of the Year in 2009 before being released in February of 2010. What happened next is where Maria's story gets genuinely impressive. She dropped the ditzy persona completely, married Mike Bennett, became one of the sharpest managers on the independent scene, helped build the Kingdom stable in Ring of Honor, captured the TNA Knockouts Championship in 2016, and co-founded Women's Wrestling Army in 2022 as a producer committed to growing the industry from the inside. A brief WWE return with her husband around 2019 ended in budget cut releases, and a subsequent AEW run never found its footing before she announced her departure on January 31st of 2025. As of early 2026, Maria is a free agent focusing on motherhood, independent projects, and pursuing a master's degree at the University of Illinois. And speaking of careers that felt incomplete despite enormous potential, the next woman on our list had one of the most hyped debuts in WWE history and one of the most heartbreaking and sudden endings the division has ever seen. Karma. Before she was Karma in WWE, she was Awesome Kong, a two-time TNA Knockouts champion who had already torn through promotions across Japan, Ring of Honor, and the United States with a dominance that was simply impossible to ignore. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing over 270 pounds, she looked like absolutely nobody else on any women's roster anywhere in the world, and she could back up every bit of that imposing presence with genuinely elite in-ring ability that made her a legitimate threat rather than just a spectacle. When WWE came calling in late 2010, the wrestling world was buzzing with anticipation, and starting in April of 2011, the company ran weeks of vignettes featuring a shadowed figure with braids cackling while destroying dolls, building excitement week after week in a way that felt genuinely different from anything the division had done before. When Karma finally debuted at Extreme Rules 2011 and attacked Michelle McCool, the crowd reaction was enormous, and week after week, she dismantled every diva in her path, while WWE carefully built toward what felt like an unmissable collision with Beth Phoenix. Then, everything stopped without warning. She appeared on the May 23rd episode of Raw, looking ready to attack before breaking down in tears, and revealing the following week that she was pregnant and needed to take a leave of absence, bringing her entire momentum to a sudden and devastating halt. Tragedy struck during her time away when she suffered a miscarriage on December 31st of 2011, and she returned for a surprise Royal Rumble entry in 2012 before being released by July of that year, never competing in another WWE match again. Her WWE run will always be the ultimate what if, but the next woman on our list at least got the opportunity to prove herself fully before walking away on her own terms, after feeling completely undervalued by the company she had given everything to. Victoria. Victoria's path into professional wrestling began during her days as a fitness trainer, when a chance encounter with Chyna left a lasting impression and opened a door she walked through without a moment's hesitation. She debuted in July of 2002 as a psychotic and unhinged villain who claimed Trish Stratus had betrayed her during their shared days as fitness models. And at Survivor Series 2002, she defeated Stratus in a brutal hardcore match inside Madison Square Garden to win her first women's championship in one of the most physically intense women's matches the company had produced to that point. Her feud with Stratus stretched deep into 2003 and produced some of the best women's wrestling of that entire era, and she followed it up by winning her second women's championship in a fatal four-way in February of 2004 before making history alongside Lita in the first ever women's steel cage match on Raw, a moment that proved the division could deliver something genuinely special when given the opportunity. Bret Hart reportedly called her one of the best, and Mickie James has publicly credited her with breaking down barriers for every woman who came after her. And yet by January of 2009, Victoria requested her own release, with 2 full years still remaining on her contract after being told there were simply no championship plans for her future. After WWE, she signed with TNA as Tara and absolutely thrived, winning the Knockouts Championship 5 times and becoming a 7-time women's champion across both promotions combined, before retiring from in-ring competition in 2019. Today she holds a Legends contract, co-hosts a podcast, and remains a beloved fixture at WrestleCon and major fan events worldwide. But while Victoria's story ended quietly and on her own terms, the next woman on our list had one of the most painful and tragic endings of this entire era. A story that goes far beyond wrestling and deserves to be told with every bit of care and respect it has always warranted. Ashley Massaro. Ashley Massaro's story begins the way many Divas Era stories do. She won the 2005 Diva Search, earned a $250,000 contract, and landed a spot on the WWE roster as her prize. But unlike many Diva Search winners who faded quietly into the background almost immediately, Ashley had genuine charisma that connected with audiences right from the start, and her first feud arrived quickly when Candice, Michelle, Victoria, and Tori Wilson, collectively known as Vince's Devils, attacked her on arrival and paired her opposite the returning Trish Stratus in a program that gave her real purpose and visibility on a major stage. She was later drafted to SmackDown, became the valet for tag team champions Paul London and Brian Kendrick, and built a feud with Melina that culminated in a women's championship match at WrestleMania 23, one of the biggest stages the company offers any performer. She left WWE in July of 2008, requesting her release to care for her daughter who had fallen seriously ill, and what followed was a life marked by mounting and devastating hardship that the wrestling world was largely unaware of until it was too late. In a 2017 affidavit, Ashley described battling severe depression, short-term memory loss, and serious physical injuries she attributed directly to her time in WWE, including documented concussions and a fractured spine, and she was among 60 former wrestlers who filed a class action concussion lawsuit against the company, seeking accountability for the long-term damage the industry had caused. She had begun working as a radio DJ at Long Island's 94.3 The Shark, and was actively pursuing a return to wrestling when, on May 16th of 2019, she was found unresponsive at her home in Smithtown, New York, and was pronounced dead at the hospital just 10 days before her 40th birthday, leaving behind a daughter and an entire wrestling community that mourned her deeply and immediately. Ashley Massaro deserved more time, more support, and far more recognition than she ever received during her career or after it. The next woman on our list had a completely different kind of journey, one that took her from Super Bowl commercials and mainstream fame to an unexpected and quietly impressive second chapter in the wrestling business that nobody saw coming. Candice Michelle. Most people remember Candice Michelle as the GoDaddy girl, the face of multiple Super Bowl commercials in the mid-2000s, and that image made it easy to underestimate what she would eventually become inside of wrestling. In her early WWE years were exactly what you'd expect: lingerie contests, the Vince's Devil's Stable, a Playboy cover in 2006, and matches built more around looks than quality. But Candice quietly put in the work, and by 2007 she shocked everyone by defeating Melina at Vengeance to win the Women's Championship. Her reign was cut short when Beth Phoenix legitimately broke her collarbone, an injury that permanently altered her career trajectory. She was released in 2009 and spent over a decade away from wrestling entirely before resurfacing in early 2026, officially signing with TNA as a backstage producer and agent for the Knockouts division.